My daughter was kidnapped by a man after school. Please stay with me as I tell you my story. Please like, share with your family and friends, and subscribe to our channel. It was just another Tuesday morning. Maya sang as she twirled around the kitchen table, her little socks sliding across the tiled floor. Mama, guess what? She said between bites of toast. Today I'm the line leader. She was so proud. I smiled and knelt to fix the bow in her ponytail. Then go lead that line with your whole heart. We were late, like always. I helped her into her sneakers, packed her lunchbox with her favorite peanut butter sandwich, and a note that said, "You're my sunshine." She stopped at the door, raised her hand in a playful salute, and said, "Love you to the moon and back." I blew her a kiss, and around the stars twice. That was the last moment of peace I knew. The day passed like any other. I went to work, answered emails, even picked up groceries. I remember thinking it was unusually quiet that afternoon. I hadn't gotten her usual after school. I made a drawing voice note. At 2:37 p.m., my phone rang. "Mrs. Madhu," said the voice on the other end. "This is Carla from Bright Oak Elementary. We're just checking that Maya got home safe." My heart stopped. "She's supposed to be on the school bus." I said slowly, "Why would she be home already?" There was a pause, then stammering. "She was signed out around 1 o'clock. A man said he was her uncle. He had a signed release form. We assumed it was prearranged." "Maya doesn't have an uncle," I said, my throat closing up. The woman's voice cracked. "Oh my God, we didn't know." I dropped the phone, my knees gave out, my vision blurred. Within the hour, the school was swarming with officers. There was no footage. The security system had gone down that day due to a power surge. The sign-out log showed a name, Donnie Acker, a name I hadn't heard in years. A man I barely remembered from church gatherings long ago. He had once given Maya a stuffed animal and lingered too long when she spoke. I'd seen the warning signs back then and pulled away. But I never thought. Now my baby girl was gone, and I hadn't even kissed her twice like I usually did. I hadn't asked her one last silly question. I hadn't known it was goodbye. The moment I heard the name Donnie Acker, a chill crawled up my spine. I remembered him, not well but enough to feel uneasy. He used to attend our church years ago. Quiet, polite, the kind of man who blended in too easily. He volunteered during youth events, always helped clean up after services. Maya was maybe 4 when we last saw him. I remembered how he used to kneel to her level, tilt his head, and ask strange questions. "Do you like it here? Would you want to live in a house with a big garden? Does your mama work a lot?" It made me uncomfortable. I'd started pulling away after that, stopped attending events where he volunteered. I didn't confront him, maybe I should've. The police moved fast. Amber Alert, border notifications, investigations into his background. That's when the deeper truths started unraveling. Donnie used to be a foster care worker, but he'd been fired years ago for boundary violations. His file hinted at complaints, nothing criminal, but enough red flags to get him removed. After that, he bounced around low-paying jobs, isolated, quietly growing resentful of the world and the systems that rejected him. He had no wife, no children, but apparently, he had spent years creating a fantasy where he did. And somehow, Maya had become part of that fantasy. He had studied me, watched my routines, knew I worked early shifts, and came late to PTA meetings. He saw a tired, overworked single mother and convinced himself I didn't deserve her. "He thinks he saved her," one officer muttered while scanning his social media trail. There were no ransom notes, no demands. Because this wasn't about money. It was about ownership. He had decided Maya was his. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. I kept seeing her face, her wide smile, her missing front tooth, the way she hugged me at night and whispered, "You're my best friend, Mama." Where was she sleeping now? Did she know I was looking for her? The worst part wasn't the silence. It was the unknown. Was she scared? Was she hurt? Or was she already forgetting me? On the third night, I sat in her empty room, clutching her favorite stuffed giraffe, and made a promise to myself. I will not stop, I will find her. Even if she forgets me, I will not forget her. The more they investigated Donnie, the darker it got. He hadn't just taken Maya on a whim. He'd been planning it for months, maybe even years. Detectives uncovered receipts, fake IDs, and a forged custody agreement dated 2 weeks before she disappeared. He'd created a life on paper, where he was her legal guardian. Different name, new school, a registered address in Canada. He had spent all that time building a world where she was his daughter, and I never existed. At first, I couldn't understand how a man could do this, but slowly, I began to see it. Donnie's online presence told a story, not a loud one, but disturbing. His social media posts were filled with rants about broken families and neglected children. He had entire threads on parenting forums pretending to be a single dad. He called himself Papa D. He didn't just want a child. He wanted control. He wanted to prove he could raise a child better than people like me. Tired, struggling, imperfect. The police told me Donnie had developed obsessive tendencies after being fired from the foster system. He believed he was chosen to protect children from bad parenting. I'd worked late shifts, I missed one school performance, I was human. But to Donnie, that was enough. In his twisted mind, I had failed, and he was the hero. He started visiting school events weeks before the kidnapping. No one noticed. He brought cookies, helped during pickup rush, made sure the staff knew his face. So when he showed up on that fateful Tuesday with a forged document and Maya's full name, no one suspected anything. I remember falling to my knees in the living room when they told me how easy it had been for him. One signature, one lie, and he took her away. The guilt swallowed me whole. I kept thinking, why didn't I scream louder back then? Why didn't I report him when I had that weird feeling? But the truth was, you never think the quiet man in the background is dangerous. Until he is. That night I sat with a lead investigator. He looked exhausted too. We've flagged him at every border crossing. We're working with the Canadian authorities. We won't stop, Clara. I nodded, tears rolling down my cheeks. But inside, I was already preparing for the worst. Donnie hadn't taken Maya out of desperation. He had taken her with a purpose. He had every intention of raising her as his own. And what terrified me more than anything was this. What if she started to believe him? Grief has stages, they say. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. But what no one tells you is that, when your child vanishes, those stages aren't linear, they're a wheel. And it spins forever. The first week was chaos. News vans outside. Detectives everywhere. Flyers with Maya's face stapled to every telephone pole in town. People called, prayed, hoped. Then the silence set in. Weeks turned into months. Birthdays passed. Christmases blurred. And my house, once noisy with dancing and stories, became still. Her room stayed the same. I couldn't touch it. Not the unicorn lamp she insisted had magic. Not the shelf with her sticker books. Not the blanket I'd tucked around her the night before she vanished. I started talking to the blanket. To the empty chair at the table. To the wind. Some nights I'd wake up sweating. Convinced I'd heard her voice. I'd run through the house like a madwoman, calling her name only to collapse, sobbing when reality returned. I lost friends. People didn't know what to say anymore. Some avoided me. Some said things like, maybe it's time to let go. Let go of what? My own flesh and blood. I couldn't, I wouldn't. Detectives followed leads, but they all fizzled. Donnie had vanished into thin air. He had no close family, no consistent address. He knew how to hide, and he'd had time to plan. But I wasn't idle. I joined online forums for missing children. I posted Maya's photo on every site that would take it. I contacted retired investigators. I even learned how to read IP logs and track activity reports. Because I had to do something. I couldn't just wait. Every time the phone rang, my heart surged. And every time it wasn't about her, it chipped away at me. Then one day, on Maya's 11th birthday, I sat alone in her room. I lit a cupcake candle. I whispered, "Where are you, baby?" And I made a promise. I don't care how long it takes. I will find you. Even if you forget me, I'll never forget you. That night, I dreamed of her. She was standing in a field, holding a note that said, "Mama, I tried to come back, but he said you were gone." I woke up crying. For 4 years, I lived in that dream. Half alive, half dead. Until one call, on a stormy night, at 3:04 a.m., changed everything. It was pouring outside. The kind of rain that drowns everything, roads. Thoughts, hope. I had barely slept. Most nights I didn't. Then at exactly 3:04 a.m., my phone rang. The screen showed an unknown number from Ontario. Canada. My pulse spiked. I hesitated. It could have been a scam, a prank, another false lead. But something in my gut told me to answer. "Hello." A calm male voice responded, "Mrs. Madhu." "Yes. This is Detective Reed, with the Ontario Provincial Police. I believe we may have found your daughter." For a moment, my breath stopped. I didn't understand the words. I needed them repeated. "Maya," I whispered. He cleared his throat. A girl was picked up walking alone outside a gas station just north of Toronto. Cold, confused, carrying no ID. A good Samaritan called it in. She gave us the name Morgan, but couldn't recall anything else. After running her fingerprints through the national database, we got a hit. I was already shaking. "She's alive." "Yes, she's safe. She's at a shelter under observation." I wanted to scream, to sob, to leap into the sky. But then he said something that shattered me. There's something you should prepare for. She doesn't remember who she is. I froze. She doesn't remember me. She has no recollection of her name, where she came from, or any family. According to her, she's been homeschooled all her life, raised by a man named Donnie. I sat down hard on the kitchen floor, barely able to hold the phone. Was he with her? I asked. No, the officer replied. We believe he passed away recently. Stroke, records indicate he was living under an alias in a rented cottage in a remote area. The girl was likely alone for days before someone found her. The room spun. She suffered psychological trauma. He continued. We'll need your help to confirm everything and reintroduce her to her life. Reintroduce her, as if she had never lived it. They sent me a photo. She was taller, thinner, her eyes less round, but it was Maya. I knew those eyes, even hollowed, they were hers. The next morning, I booked the first flight to Canada. I didn't pack much, just the giraffe she used to sleep with, and the note from her 7th birthday that said, "Love you always, no matter what." I didn't know what I'd say. I didn't know if she'd even look at me. But I knew one thing. My daughter was alive, and I was going to bring her home, even if she didn't know it was home anymore. When I stepped into the shelter, I felt like I was walking through water. My legs were heavy, my chest tight. A part of me was terrified, not of what I'd see, but of what I wouldn't. The staff led me through a corridor. She's quiet, withdrawn, they warned. Sometimes she flinches when someone enters too fast. I nodded, clutching Maya's old giraffe. I'd brought it in case something sparked. And then there she was, sitting at a small table by the window, wearing a gray hoodie that swallowed her small frame. Her hair was longer, unkempt, her eyes dimmer but still familiar. I stood frozen. She looked up. Her gaze slid over me like I was a stranger. No recognition, no flicker of memory. Nothing. Hi, she said quietly. Are you the lady from the case? My throat closed. No, baby, I'm your mother. She tilted her head. I don't think so. My dad died. My name's Morgan. Maya, I whispered. Your name is Maya Clara Madu. You used to sing about giraffes and jam. You called me Mama Star, because I read you stories about constellations every night. She blinked. I don't remember that, she said. She wasn't rude. She wasn't angry. She was just blank. A clean slate someone had written a lie on. The therapist later explained that her mind had likely locked away her real memories to survive the trauma. Donnie had told her I gave her away, that I couldn't care for her, that she was unwanted. He had raised her in isolation. No school, no outside contact. He homeschooled her with made-up lessons, changed her birthday, changed her name. He made sure she had no reason to ask questions. I loved him, she said later in a session. He was all I had. I didn't correct her. I just listened, heartbreaking. I stayed in Canada for 2 weeks. Every day, I visited. I brought her drawings she made when she was 5. Photos of us at the park. The little pink scarf she used to sleep with. Some days, she looked at the pictures and said nothing. Other days, she asked me things like, did I have a favorite song? Or what was my bedtime? Once she cried. I didn't ask why, I just held her hand. And then one day, she reached out for the giraffe. This feels familiar, she whispered. I smiled, tears blurring my vision. His name is Jupiter. She held it to her chest and whispered, Jupiter. She didn't call me Mama. She didn't fall into my arms. But she didn't flinch either. And that, I told myself, was a beginning. It started with a whisper in her sleep. One night, during a supervised stay, I watched her mumble through a dream, her voice barely audible. Donnie, I won't tell. I froze, the room was silent again within seconds. But that whisper haunted me. The next day, I asked the therapist if she ever spoke about Donnie in sessions. She nodded solemnly, bits and pieces. There's more there, but it's tangled like threads knotted in fear. Maya had a different name, a different birthday, a fabricated life, so thoroughly constructed that even her memories obeyed it. And yet, little fragments were breaking through. She asked one day, if you were really my mom, why didn't you come for me sooner? I had no answer that could undo what had been done. So I told the truth. I tried every day for 4 years. But he knew how to hide, baby. He didn't want you to be found. Her face hardened. He said you forgot about me. The therapist interjected gently. Maya, sometimes people lie to keep control. They make up stories to isolate us. Donnie did that to you. For the first time, she didn't argue. She just looked away. The police found more evidence at the cottage. Notebooks filled with fabricated lesson plans, manipulated journal entries from Maya, and voice recordings of Donnie, coaching her on what to say if questioned. He told her I was sick, that I didn't want her, that he saved her. And she believed it, because she had to. When you're a child, your world is shaped by those who feed you, clothe you, and tuck you in. And Donnie had fed her lies, as if they were lullabies. In one of the tapes, he told her, "If anyone asks, you're Morgan Acker. You've always lived here. Your mother doesn't want you anymore." That was the part I couldn't forgive. Not the kidnapping, not the hiding, but the erasure. He didn't just steal my child, he tried to rewrite her. Maya grew quieter after we played the tapes. She didn't want to see me for 2 days. I understood. Her world was unraveling. The man she trusted had crafted her entire reality. And now she didn't know what was real. On the third day, she handed me the giraffe and said softly, "Can you tell me something real? Something I used to say or do that only my real mom would know." I nodded, heart pounding. "When you were 4, you insisted clouds were made of mashed potatoes. And you once told me you wanted to live in the fridge so you could eat yogurt forever." She blinked, then for the first time she smiled. A real one. "Mashed potato clouds," she whispered. "Yes," I said, smiling through tears. And just like that, one thread of truth pulled loose from the knot. Donnie died before he could be arrested. I sat across from Detective Reed when he broke the news. "Massive stroke," he said. He was found in his cottage, collapsed beside a pot of tea and a crossword puzzle. Part of me expected relief, closure, but all I felt was rage. He took 4 years of Maya's life, and now he wouldn't have to face what he did. He wouldn't sit in a courtroom, hear the words kidnapper, abuser, liar. He wouldn't hear my daughter testify. He wouldn't answer for the scars he left. But the worst part, he took the truth with him. We'd never know exactly what happened during those years. Only Maya held those pieces, and they came to the surface slowly, painfully, and out of order, like puzzle fragments soaked in grief. There were no neighbors in that remote town, no school records, no medical visits. Donnie had shielded her from everything, even sunlight at times. He said I'd get sick if I went outside too long, Maya told the therapist. He said other people weren't safe, that they'd hurt me or steal me. In his twisted mind, he wasn't the villain. He believed he was protecting her. From me, from the world. The authorities closed the case. There was no one left to prosecute. No criminal on trial. Just the wreckage and us, standing in it. I was advised to file for full guardianship again, to erase the false identity Donnie gave her. It was a nightmare, paperwork, court appearances, DNA tests, all to prove that the child I birthed belonged to me. It was exhausting. And Maya, she was distant, not cold, but distant, as if walking through life with fogged glasses. One night, I heard her crying through the bedroom door. I didn't go in. I knew she needed to grieve in her own way. But I whispered through the crack, "You don't have to hold it all in. I'm here, always." The next morning, I found the giraffe beside my coffee mug, its little stitched smile facing upward. She had held on to it the whole night. Later that week, she asked me quietly, "Did I like ice cream?" "You hated vanilla," I smiled. "You said it was too plain." She smiled too barely. "Maybe I still do." And just like that, another crack of light pierced through. The case was closed, but the healing was only just beginning. And we would face it, not as strangers, but as a mother and daughter trying to find each other again, one memory at a time. The first time she called me Mom, it was by accident. We were in the kitchen. I had just burned the toast again. She looked at me, amused, and said, "Mom, it's literally black," then stopped mid-sentence. Her face froze, the air shifted. I didn't react. I didn't want to scare the moment away. She turned back to the fridge, pretending it hadn't happened, but her fingers trembled as she grabbed the milk. Later that evening, I found her sitting on the porch, staring into the dark. "You don't have to call me anything," I said gently, "not until it feels right." She didn't look at me. "It's not that I don't want to. It's just I don't know how to." I sat beside her. "I understand." We sat in silence for a while. Then she whispered, "I don't know who I am, Mom." And this time, she meant it. Her voice cracked, and tears finally spilled from the dam she'd built for years. She sobbed for the life she had, the one she lost, and the one she was struggling to remember. I wrapped my arms around her, and for the first time in a very long time, she let herself be held. That night, she asked if she could sleep in my room. I nodded, and she curled up beside me, Jupiter the giraffe tucked under her chin. Before falling asleep, she whispered, "I used to have dreams about this being warm, being safe." I held my breaths. "And now," she added, "it doesn't feel like a dream anymore." From that night on, things shifted. She began painting messy, abstract, emotional pieces. One of them had a bright yellow sun in the center, surrounded by shadows. When I asked what it meant, she shrugged. Just trying to remember the light. I enrolled her in a small art therapy program. She was hesitant at first, but slowly, she opened up. She started making jokes, laughing at cat videos, arguing about cereal flavors. She was coming back. But trauma doesn't vanish. It lingers like smoke after fire, faint but always there. She still flinched when she heard deep voices, still woke up from nightmares she couldn't explain, still struggled to say my name without hesitation. But every day she tried. And every day I reminded her, you're safe now, you're home. Even if the pieces weren't all in place, even if the past was blurred, she was rebuilding. And so was I. We stood in front of the school gates, her fingers gripping mine a little tighter than usual. It was her first day back in a real school. Not a cottage, not a lie. A real school, with real teachers, classmates, and noise. I don't know if I can do this, she whispered, eyes fixed on the crowd of students. You don't have to be perfect. I said, you just have to show up. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. Okay. As she walked toward the building, she turned around. Will you be here when I get back? Always. I didn't even have to say it, she knew. It had been almost a year since Canada. Since that 3:04 a.m. call. Since I found her, or rather, since we began finding each other again. She still had blank spaces in her memory. Still couldn't remember the lullabies. Still got headaches when she thought too hard about certain places. But she remembered Jupiter. She remembered mashed potato clouds. And she remembered that I stayed. One day, during a quiet evening, she asked me, why didn't you give up? I looked at her, the girl I once feared I'd never see again. The girl who came back to me in fragments and built herself from the ashes of someone else's lies. Because you were mine, I said. Even when the world tried to take you. Even when you didn't remember me. You were always mine. She smiled, eyes glassy but full of light. I think I'm starting to remember that. And in that moment, I saw her, not the lost child. Not the girl he tried to erase, but Maya. My Maya, standing tall in her own story. There would be hard days still. Triggers, doubt, gaps that may never be filled. But she wasn't alone anymore. And neither was I. As I watched her disappear into the school, I whispered to the wind, thank you for giving her back. Because for a long time, I thought I'd lost her forever. Please like and subscribe to our channel for more stories.